Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Views on View. I am Steve Edwards, the host with the face for radio and the voice for being a mime, but I'm still your host, as I always like to say. Today, our special guest is David Atanda. How are you doing, David?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Happy to be here. It's like my second time on Views on View, so yeah.
Oh, it has. Okay. I thought I recognized the name. I'd have to go back and look. David is coming to us all the way from Lagos, Nigeria. So Thank you for making the long trip over the internets to join us. So before we get started into our topic today, David, why don't you tell us about yourself? Give us a little scoop on who you are, what you do, why you're famous, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm David Atanda. I'm currently UX engineer at ConsenSys. I work specifically on Infura. So technically my job is basically to create pixel perfect components or interactions on the web. So for my current job just means I'm able to do that on the bigger scale for projects, in Web3 and enabling a more decentralized internet in that regard.
Okay, so speaking of Web3, that is going to be our topic for the day. And what we were going to talk about is using Web3 Auth in a VUE application for user authentication. So for starters, let's define some terms. So we've talked about Web2 and Web3 is the term du jour, shall we say, for cryptocurrency, blockchain, using those kinds of technologies. I think most people think of it again in terms of cryptocurrencies such as Ethereum or Dogecoin or any of the other cryptocurrencies. So did I get that right? What's the best way for you? How do you define Web 2 versus Web 3?
I feel like Web 2, as we all know it, and we've seen the internet, evolve since 1999 and all of that, email, MySpace, YouTube, and all of that. Web 3 was created, right, in order to have a situation whereby everybody gets to own their data, right, and it's permissionless, meaning it doesn't have like a lot of how do I put it? How do I put this? It doesn't have a lot of centralization, right? So no one
distributed.
person, yeah, exactly. So it gives everybody access, regardless of where you are, your location. You're not limited by that. You can as well access and pay for things wherever you are. You can access information without being constrained to a particular location. I believe that's how I feel it is, or I will explain it in terms of real life application to just a layman actually.
Okay. So in particular, we're going to talk about using Web3 to authenticate within a VUE app and how you can do that. Now, the tool that you've talked is Web3 Auth.io, which is a product. So I guess my first questions is one, how does this work? And for someone to be able to use Web3 authentication, do they have to have like a wallet, a cryptocurrency wallet or something along those lines?
Yeah, so usually they're supposed to have like a wallet. So we're talking a decentralized wallet, a DeFi wallet, right? It's not a centralized, not using like centralized exchange like, Binance or Coinbase, all of those guys, right? You would need to own like a DeFi wallet, like, MetaMask, Rainbow, and yeah, where you actually have your private keys to be able to authenticate to use these dApps. Like that's how you get authenticated in to access like decentralized applications. But with Web3 Auth, what they do is they're able to allow you use your social logins, right? Like you do with like a regular app, right? So using a social login, they're able to, in the background, right? They're actually able to create something called an MPC wallet, right? Which makes it easy for you to recover your account or whatever, right? In a way whereby it's not still very centralized, right? But they give you a wallet in the background. It's sort of like abstracted over it, right? Just to make it easier for regular people to also access stuff in the Web3 space or in the decentralized internet space, depending on how you look at it.
So you do have a wallet, but it's not for money, it's for storing keys. Crypto keys, is that the correct way to say it?
No, so the crypto keys, right? So the private keys are what determine that you own that wallet, right? So there's the wallet separately, and there's the dApps, right? So you own the wallet and you own those private keys. So you use the wallet to sign into those dApps, right? So what
To
that
sign
means,
into what? I'm sorry, can't
the
understand.
dApps, like decentralized applications. So I just call it decentralized applications dApps. So instead of apps, I say dApps.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you use your wallet to sign into those dApps, right? Because your wallet is a particular wallet that exists on the blockchain, right? So it shows that you are the real owner of that wallet. That's basically the idea. Like you own a wallet, and you're able to sign in, meaning you're the real owner of that wallet. But what Web3 Auth does is that even though you don't have a wallet, you're a newbie, you probably just need to access something on the dApp, or you're just getting into the space, and getting a wallet is a little bit how do I put this, intimidating for you, all of that. They still allow you sign in with your social identity, like your Twitter, your Facebook, your Discord, your YouTube. Sorry, not YouTube, right? I think they allow email, not YouTube, right? To sign into those dApps by creating a wallet for you in the background, but you still own the private keys of those wallets. So that's how it works. But basically, the aim is to ensure that you can still access dApps without owning the wallet. That's
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned using the social, so like a Twitter login, a Facebook login. Does that include like a GitHub login? I'm sure, which is pretty common for
Yeah.
developers to use.
Exactly. Exactly.
So how does that work? How does that integration work then?
Yeah, so in the back end, they use something called an MPC wallet, as I mentioned, which is a multi-party computation wallet, right? Meaning they hold a part of your keys and you hold a part of your keys, right? So doing that, they cannot access, or they cannot like sign transactions um, on your behalf. So what happens is this: since they are creating the wallet for you, they still cannot sign transactions for you, meaning in layman terms, it means that they cannot authorize anything, right, without you actually, um, like clicking on it or whatever. So they can't do anything for you in the background. They basically are just there to make things easier for you to access those dApps, right? So on the engineering side, it gets way more complicated than just them holding part of the keys. But that is basically like the overview of things, really. It's just basically to like improve user experience in Web3. I know we're currently in the bear market and all, but like moving into like the next bull run and having more people jump on the Web3 hype. So yeah, it just helps to it just helps to make things easier for everybody to take advantage of the space and see what we have there.
Okay, so what is Web3 Auth then? You said it was released sometime last year, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. I've been following them. It's really like I think they raised like a bunch of money like last year in Q4
So it's a startup.
to
Okay.
yeah, they're also like a startup company, right? Just to like um improve the space. Basically, I think then it's basically an infrastructure company, right? To just make it easier to like, onboard new people into Web3 and all of that. I believe that's how they came about, from what I've read about them.
Okay. So what are the products that you're using then of theirs to, because they have multiple products, it looks like. Um, that's what we're going to integrate
Yeah.
into our VUE app, correct?
Yes, so they have a modal SDK, which means you just have to like install I think Web3 Auth modal. They have like the npm packages, right, where you just install it and yeah, you're able to like have the modal pop up. So you don't have to build the modal, right? You just install the SDKs and all of that, and you're able to like trigger their modal to pop up. So then once their modal pops up, right, the user is able to authenticate using either their social login or their wallet itself, right? But in this case, we're focused on social login because having more people like be able to authenticate without having a wallet, right? So yeah, on that instance, immediately the social login, they get to log in and they be able to access the dApps and sign transactions or do whatever is required of them or they hope to do on that particular dApp. Yeah, that's basically how we hope to use it, or it's going to be it's traditionally used. Although they also have like the login without like the modal, where you can just like call those methods directly to like okay, you have your own custom button, sign in Google for instance, and click on it and trigger that function. Then you're able to like log in and all of that. But yeah, they have like the modal thing which most people use just to simplify things and all of that, rather than build their own custom button and yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking at their documentation, and there's a page on Web3 Auth JavaScript SDKs, and so they have Web3 Auth modal and then a Web3 Auth no modal, and it's from what I'm reading, it appears that the no modal is what we would call a headless type of SDK, where you could use your library of choice to create your own modal and buttons, and then you just have to wire the buttons up appropriately.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what is this product giving to you? Is it just the SDK to create it? Where, let's, okay, so let's say, for instance, I want to use this in my own VUE app, and I want people to be able to log in using Web3 Auth. Do I separately have to have the infrastructure, the wallet, or the dApp created, or what has to be done ahead of time, or does this tool and this company handle all of that for you?
Yeah, so they abstract a lot of things for you, right? Although you're facing to like, use their keys on their website and all of that, where you sign in. I think they have a paid plan. I think it's about $69 or whatever, depending on what's on your package and all of that. But yeah, what they do is they're able to abstract all of that work away from you. You just need like a key. Like once you sign up, you're able to get a key, all of that for your project, specifically for your project, right? And you're able to like input that on your front end as an environment variable rather, and pull it into your VUE app and use it, right? But they abstract like all of the work for you, which is like super cool. Yeah, so that's their main selling point is they're able to abstract all of that work away from you, so you don't have to do all of that stress.
Okay, so still trying to get my head around this, just because I'm Web3 ignorant when it comes to actual implementations and stuff. So you're going to buy one of their plans that handles so the plans, you pay for so many active wallets. So I guess it depends on how large a user base your application is going to have, right? So they have a free plan that goes up to 1,000 monthly active wallets, and then 0.04 cents or dollars, excuse me if I'm reading this correctly, for every additional wallet. Then they have plans that go up to 3,000 wallets, MAWs they call them, monthly active wallets, up to 10,000, and then custom, for the large enterprise.
Yeah. They have like different plans depending on the number of wallets, meaning like the number of users you have, right? Yeah, based on your application and all of that. So I know they have like a free plan also. I think
right, that gives you up to 1,000 monthly active wallets.
Yeah, exactly. That's how they handle their pricing, really. But I think at the end of the day, like their pricing is based on the value they are offering and depending on the kind of application. So if you are in the Web3 space, right, and you're building a bunch of things that are focused on like newbies or Web3 people that are not, or like non, I can say like ignorant Web3 people, like just like people that are not really into the space, that don't really understand, wallets, and you really don't want to stress them to like go through all of that. And the value proposition that a product has that requires like a decentralized side of it. Onboarding users into it definitely is way easier with this, at least for user side. Like you can completely abstract the whole wallet Web3 part away from a user, right? Using this tool. So you have people on board without even knowing it's a Web3 application. I'm trying to think of a product that does that right now, but I can't really place my finger on it. But there are like products whereby you won't even know that you are dealing with anything blockchain or Web3. You just have like such smooth UX, and these guys just like help such companies or such products achieve that.
Okay, so then when it comes to implementation in the VUE application, how does that work? I'm assuming it's like, any other SDK or library that you're going to integrate where you install it via npm and then include, in your component. And if you're using the modal, there's some methods or maybe even components. Are there any particular Vue wrappers that you found, or is it all strictly JavaScript and you have to add the Vue goodness to it?
So they have like an SDK thing specifically for like Vue, or that can be used in Vue. Like I think in generic way, it works like within Vue still, right? They're like the Web3 Auth / modal
Right.
npm package, and they also have like other packages like for different wallets, right? For MetaMask, for Wallet Connect, all of that. You might not really know that, but like they're able to like create packages all within like Web3 Auth ecosystem that you would use in your Vue application itself, right? So it feels really normal. Like it doesn't look like there's some crazy Web3 thing that goes on. It just makes like a regular package. You initialize it normally with like an initial instance of it. Okay, Web3 Auth. You input your keys into an object. Basically, initialize it like you would do with any package that you want to initialize, right? Then you continue to use in your application to like sign in and all of those things, right? So it doesn't have like any special thing that makes it strange or that makes it different from all of the regular like packages we all know and we can initialize within our application. So that also makes it good. I think on the client side, it just makes it really, really, really easy to initialize within our app. So yeah.
So have you actually implemented this kit in any applications yet?
Yeah, so they have like a sample application which you could probably put in the description of this video, right? That sample application is what I've used here, but yeah, they have like a sample application that illustrates how it works on a low level. Yeah.
But I'm saying, have you, in any of your applications, have you been able to successfully implement this yet?
Yeah, well, I've gone through like their sample application and I've basically just like, looked through it and seen how it's done. So yeah, but I've not implemented on my own personal application separately away from their sample application. But I've gone through it and yeah, I think it's really cool. Yeah, although I implemented on a React application a while ago, but yeah, on their Vue application, no, not personally, but yeah.
Okay, so when you implement this, how's it interacting with your Vue app? In other words, is it, I assume it does the authentication on the infrastructure on the blockchain somewhere, and do you get some sort of like a JWT, some sort of token? Is it a cookie in the browser, that gets sent, or how does what are you given back to use for authentication for your particular user and integrate with your back-end system?
Yeah. So once you install like the SDKs and all of that, I can share that separately because they're like I think about three or so, like depending on how it's been implemented. But once you're able to install like the Web3 modal, at Web3 modal, at Web3 auth slash modal and whatever, right? That's the package name exactly, right? What happens is you obviously using the composition API, right? You have all those packages installed, then you initialize that particular package, right? Using like your an object that contains the name of your project that you've already installed, you've already added to the Web3 Auth dashboard. So you have a dashboard on Web3 Auth, right? Where you add obviously the name of your project, you create a project, the name of your project, and the particular chain that project is on, right? And you're able to create it and you're able to get like a client API, sorry, a client ID that is unique to you, right? Just as you have with any other SDK, right? And once it's initialized, you're able to get the methods that you need to, sign transaction, get chain ID, and all those things that are required, like in decentralized applications, like all those methods, right? Then you're able to call those methods within your UI, right? So within like your UI itself, you're able to trigger those methods the same way you trigger like a regular function, right? The same way you're able to trigger those methods, then also use them within your UI. You're able to sign in, authenticate the user, right? And they're able to then interact with whatever protocol or whatever thing you want them to do, moving forward within your web application, right? So that's how it works. So obviously you have to sign in first, probably be on a free trial, then create your project, then take your credentials from the dashboard which you just created, take into your web app, initialize the Web3 Auth modal instance, and you're able to use those methods within your application. So that's how it is on a high level, technically within your application.
Okay. So yeah, I suppose going much farther would require actually looking at code, which is something hard to do on an audio podcast.
Yeah.
For sure. So last question I can think of is, okay, so this is a bunch of work, obviously, and it requires some different infrastructure on the back end, which is what the WebAuth.io people are doing for you.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it, how it's decentralized. So what is the benefit of using this type of system for authentication in a VUE app? Is it security? Is it because it's decentralized? Is it harder to hack? What are the benefits of implementing a system like this?
Yeah, so within the Web3 space, it's a thing whereby pre the last bull run, which we had, the Dogecoin explosion and all of that stuff, right? What happened is you needed to have a wallet to interact with protocols, like beyond like centralized exchanges, right? Like interact with actual protocols itself. You just have like a wallet which required you to, I don't know if you heard of this, but like a seed phrase. Whereas if you lose that seed phrase, it means you've lost your wallet. Because the whole idea of having a wallet is in order for you to be your own bank, in quotes, right? So nobody can take that wallet away from you or whatever, right? So you need a seed phrase which is the private key that shows you own that wallet. And all of that just feels really intimidating for regular people to like interact with. It's not convenient, to be honest, to interact with like these applications or these protocols, and all of that stuff. So the main advantage of using Web3 is institution whereby they are able to allow you still interact with these apps or still interact with applications without dealing with having your own wallet and going through that hurdle, right, to interact with this. And at the end of the day, just the idea of ease of use and how that can help newbies to interact with these applications.
Right, I
originally.
get that. So WebAuth abstracts a lot of the functionality for you, right? If you're to use their SDKs, they handle the wallets and all the encryption and whatever goes on behind the scenes to make sure you're unique. But above and beyond that, what's the benefit of using this whole type of login? Is it speed? Is it security? Is it decentralization, et cetera? What is, as compared to the normal, the Web2 authentication, for lack of a better term, that we're using now?
Oh, okay. So Web2 application works, but in order to like deal with applications on the blockchain, which means, and that's like, for instance, send the most basic thing, send crypto, right, to a different person or whatever, right, or to deal with, let's say, identity on the blockchain, or in fact, to deal with anything on the blockchain, right, you need a different kind of authentication, right, which means a different kind of authentication that allows you to interact with the blockchain. So that way, these guys come in. Like regular Web2 application just means like, signing in Google, you speak to the server and you're able to do whatever you want to do on that particular app. But in Web3, it's a little bit different in terms of how you interact with the blockchain and how you create transactions or sign transactions on the blockchain. So I don't go too deep, right? It's just like using this, that's what brought about this form of authentication, right? So it comes with signing with your wallet and all of those things, whereby it means you are interacting directly with the blockchain, or like different blockchains, as you know it, like Ethereum, Polygon, Arbitrum, and all of those blockchains, right? In order to deal with them or do anything at all with them, you need this form of authentication, right? Using a wallet. So that's how it's pretty much different from how you do Web2. But because the experience is like a little bit tricky, that's where these guys come in, like Web3 Auth in this case, come in to smoothen that process for you. So yeah, it's pretty much different from what we have with Web2 as we all have known it over the years.
Okay. So before we wrap up, was there anything we haven't covered about Web3 Auth and VUE and that we wanted to cover, that you wanted to cover?
I don't think that anything. Obviously, I can drop the link of GitHub repo. Yeah, I feel like with VUE in the Web3 space, more tools need to be built, which have been built, right? Which we're all working on. Within the ecosystem that we've seen pop up like a few times over the past decade and all of that. But yeah, more VUE developers like within the Web3 space in this case should use more of VUE. I know we have like a lot of React and Next and all of that, primarily because we have tools within the space, right, that are focused on React and Next. But yeah, there are more things like this are popping up for the VUE guys like me, right, to also work within the space, to allow us to use VUE to build product within this space. So yeah, I really don't think there's anything we've not covered. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming on to talk about this. I know I still haven't gotten my head fully around blockchain and crypto and how that works, just because I haven't had time. But for those who are listening who might want to investigate this, again, the product, the company is Web3Auth.io, number 3, and it's got details and docs on kits and so on. So that's something for those who want to delve into it. Here's your chance. All right, so with that, we will move on to picks. Picks are part of the show where we get to talk about things that may or may not have absolutely anything to do with tech or with VUE, or could be food, movies, books, kids' games, you name it. I'll start out and save the guest for last. And on Hacker News came across an interesting story, and it's an article from the New York Times, and it's sort of things I've talked about before, and it has to do with remote versus in-office work, especially with the explosion of remote work since, over the past 3 years. And it's titled "What Young Workers Miss Without the Power of Proximity." And having worked in IT for over 25 years and spent probably the first 13, 14 years in an office environment, and since 2009 I've been remote, I've seen the pros and cons of both environments. And what the gist of the article is that basically your junior employees, you youngers, the one who need tutelage and help and feedback, are the ones that benefit most from being in the office, where the more the senior people who don't necessarily need as much of that can function much better in a remote. But for like a junior person coming in and this is their first job and they start out remote, they really miss a lot. And I know that, from my days of being in the office, I know that there's quite a lot that happens, quite a lot of feedback and learning and helping each other that you don't get so much when you're remote. But anyway, like I said, it's called "What Young Workers Miss Without the Power of Proximity," and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And then with that, we get to the dad jokes of the week. I prefer to think of those as the highlight of the podcast. Other people might think differently. So I'll start out. So I told my wife recently that I was building a model of Mount Everest. She said, "Is it to scale?" I said, "No, it's to look at." Right? It's not to climb. Yeah, anyway. So, so if, here's a question for you. If zookeepers say that you can't buy the animals, then why do zebras have barcodes?
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And a friend of mine on Twitter sent me a great cartoon. I put it on my Twitter that you can see it. That shows a zebra with a QR code on it instead of the stripes and says, "Dude, you got to upgrade." And then finally, I asked the librarian when I was at the library if they had any books on different noise levels. And she said, "Sure, what volume would you like?"
Okay. That was a very good one.
Yeah, that got an eye roll from David for those who aren't watching. So those are the dad jokes of the week. So David, do you been able to come up with any picks for us?
I've not, except I Google one quickly.
Oh, that's okay. If there's maybe a TV shows or movies you watched recently or something like that, that's fine if you don't.
Yeah, I don't.
No picks. Okay. Well, with that, we will wrap up the episode. Thanks for coming on, David. Appreciate hearing about Web3 and how it can be used with VUE. It's certainly something worth investigating further. If people want to follow you or see what you're working on, your coding, where are the best places to do that?
I think the best place is like Twitter or maybe LinkedIn if you're a corporate focused person. But yeah, mostly Twitter. I guess I could drop my handle maybe in the chat, but like David Preneur. I need a very cheeky name like entrepreneur David Preneur, but yeah,
All right, we will put a link to the show notes to David's Twitter account, and you can follow him there. I am Wonder95 on Twitter and GitHub and just about anywhere else on the socials. So anyway, thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you next time on Views on VUE.